This is kind of a long, depressing one I'll read later when you're ready for a long, depressing one. I bring more than I need usually. It's like having shoes, you want options. All right. I don't know if you're familiar with a rather famous photograph of Picasso and François Gillot, taken by Robert Guano, which Picasso's, François Gillot's like really up front in the picture in the foreground, and he's in the back, just like looking at her and, trying to figure out why he's there. And then in the back, there's 3 Picasso paintings or drawings of her, and she's looking somewhere else, probably like an exit sign. And so anyway, this is a poem based on that photograph. Already she is turning into his beast, her hero. Metronomes wreck the world, dry dock sense, blur, grain, shade, the minute bells of weight balancing in air's trough. Note how he holds his head up with his right hand, Doric arm grounded in the black knee. How he scores his stilled dance at the edge of the bed. 3 renditions of her like a wardrobe of halos or explanations are pinned to the wall above him. The black on white stripes of his sweater defy the painted lines, which curve her amphoric face into a lit body. He sits in defiance of the New World eagles marching on the blanket. She is of him and hopes to be of herself, too. But failure is the crash of hope that wasn't provided for nobly. Check the books on this one. Young girl melts before the idol of weather. Can you blame him? Can you honestly say this minotaur and that meticulously frail creature, it had to be? Is there not also a lust to surrender? We have the paintings and the liberation of the woman to console us. Where there is appetite, there also will legends gather. Part 3 of the book has poems that are a little bit more complicated in terms of the illusions and the metaphysics involved. I wanted to focus on the very act of coming up with metaphors of that which we can't understand except through leaps of faith, God, or what's waiting for us, beyond the grave, or what kind of meaning or force moves us through life. What force could create poetry and meter maids, some kind of force to explain that breadth. And making parables becomes sort of like, the essence of all religious thought. And I thought, well, maybe that there's a reason for that. The very making of metaphors puts us into a different kind of framework. We have to imagine many things at once rather than in a linear manner. This poem is called Parable, and I dedicated to Eric Ormsby, who is a very fine poet, lives in Canada, and has been a friend and a co-conspirator in this art for a very long time. And it's also one last thing I need to mention. I was flipping through channels, and I bumped into this one of the, I think it was the Catholic channel. There's a friar who has a very strange beard, and at that precise moment he was talking about some text in Ephesians and how the Spirit is like a mountain, and you climb up a mountain, you go past a certain point, but you still keep climbing. And he seemed to be getting lost in his own metaphors as he was saying this. And at that moment I was looking out the different windows in that part of the house at that time before I overbuilt it, and now it doesn't have that window anymore. You could look through that window and see other neighbors' windows lit up, and I'm playing with that whole idea of different windows being frameworks. In this shut trunk of Florida night, water ghosts and folds into linen. East of my yard, the windows amber, and in each vertical pool, rims with names, Chippendale and Queen Anne, gel like bugs in a resined privacy. Once inside, this other thrown window makes me stop at a channel where a gray friar scales the metaphor of the Spirit, A mountain, he says, that has no summit, no vanity, but like the ones of earth, filled with revenues of vision. Behold the winged woven crag, heather taking a plateau, and above, sky you can ripple with a mirror's dipped hand, except there is no end to the journey in this or in the next life. Strange lessons hewn from an Ephesian text, as distant as summer snow lacing an Alp. Each generation is called to parable, not to worship. Let me call this the parable of amber. A man buys his sweetheart a pair of earrings, drops of molten wheat. They both love the silvery seed discs within them, until the jeweler, groping through his lens, says they are too perfect and not the things of nature. He rubs the false amber to see if it will lift the china paper from the table. Actually, he says, if it were genuine, it would be plied with folds that would break the light. Plastic is what amber tried to be, and needed us to make the leap. As short as the friar's infinite mountain, but it's in the conjuring the divinity is scraped across the humid night, through laundry line and branch, a house like any other, except its curtains are just so, and the lights are careless on. From another yard, perhaps my window betrays a boxed aurora borealis, ordained by a TV's moods in red and green, and whoever games there or snores, metaphors a cluster of fears and fictions into the soul of a climber, rallying mumbles up Florida's opal cliffs, cumuli moved by the chance and plot of weather.